I'm not gonna lie. It's been a really entertaining past few weeks as somebody who covers the NHL for a living here on YouTube. Especially for someone like me who happens to cheer for a Canadian team. Between Vancouver Canucks fans to Ottawa Senators fans, with Toronto Maple Leafs fans and Winnipeg Jets fans, there have been so many conversations about American hockey players lately. With Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau leaving Calgary, starting everything back at the early 2020s, to Quinn Hughes asking out of Vancouver as the captain of the Canucks in November, to what we saw with Brady Tkachuk asking out of the Ottawa Senators as the captain of that team. Is Connor Hellebuyck on his way out too? What about Austin Matthews of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Further to that, you have even more conversations on guys that were part of that American Olympic squad. Dylan Larkin is not a part of a Canadian NHL franchise, but he wants out too. There has been this exodus of guys in the National Hockey League that happen to have been a part of that U.S. Olympic squad. Some of these guys want out, and some of these guys are making things scary for Canadian fans. But with that said, let's talk about two players on the Montreal Canadiens who supposedly don't fall into that bubble. It's weird because you would assume that maybe in some realm they could, but so far it doesn't seem like they have. Let's talk about Hutson and Cole Caufield of the Montreal Canadiens and how these guys seem immune to the American exodus of the late 2020s in the National Hockey League. Yes, it's true, Cole Caufield was a part of that stellar NTDP season in the 2018-19 draft year. You had Jack Hughes, Alex Turcotte, Trevor Zegras, Boldy, Knight, York, Caufield, and then you had other names like Alex Vlasic, Johnny Beecher. So many talented prospects to be were drafted out of that NTDP team. Jack Hughes, of course, the younger brother of Quinn Hughes, who was inevitably drafted and traded from Vancouver. Brady Tkachuk is also pretty tight with Caufield and the Hugheses and those NTDP guys. Guess what? Hutson, he was also a part of the US NTDP. He was there a lot later than the Hugheses and the Caufields, but he was still there, regardless. And when you look at the contract situation of both of these guys, Cole Caufield is signed on to the Montreal Canadiens till the end of 2031, making $7.85 million a year. Hutson, he is signed till the end of 2034, making $8.8 million a year. These guys are both here for the long haul. They don't have pending expiring contracts in the same way that Quinn Hughes and Brady Tkachuk did. Meanwhile, you also have the dedication, the fact that these guys have legitimately expressed the idea of staying with Montreal, and they have expressed the solid interest in doing so. Totally opposite of what we saw out of the Tkachuks and Quinn Hughes. Take a look at what Marco D'Amico posted on Twitter. He said, "I saw a lot of posts of people worrying that the exodus of American-born players could impact Montreal. Remember, Cole Caufield and Hutson both took less to stay with the Habs, and they didn't need full no-move clauses in their deals. I am told both players are very happy, and they see a winner in the making." Now, that is so sweet. Because I think it speaks volumes to not only just how solid Caufield and Hutson seem to be as dudes, but also how they may or may not have, depending on who you ask, dodged a bullet based off of everything that's gone down. Yeah, it's true. Caufield and Hutson seem to be stand-up guys. They are a part of a Montreal Canadiens squad that has gone further than any of the teams that these other American dudes have requested trades from. Montreal's better than Vancouver. Montreal is better than Ottawa. Montreal is better than Detroit. So from the perspective of these guys play on an actually good team, I can totally understand why you can say, yeah, it's obvious why Hutson and Caufield want to stay in Montreal, because Montreal's good. They're young, they're up and coming, they're ahead of schedule on their rebuild, they made the third round. What's not to like out of the Canadiens? But what I also wanted to bring up, and this is like an extra side comment, we are seeing a lot of dudes out of this American Olympic team happen to go through these big transitions. Quinn Hughes, he did that already. Jack Hughes, could he get traded? If the New Jersey Devils decide to part ways with Nico Hischier, maybe there's a possibility Jack Hughes and even Luke Hughes gets moved. Austin Matthews, his name has been tossed about in trade rumors for quite a bit already. Zach Werenski, he's been rumored to wanting out of Columbus. Matthew Tkachuk already demanded a trade out of Calgary. Brady Tkachuk already demanded a trade out of Ottawa. Dylan Larkin wants a trade out of Detroit. A part of me wonders if Cole Caufield and Lane Hutson missing out on the Olympic team actually did them some good. Not saying that Hutson and Caufield are guys that, oh, if they were a part of this Olympic team, then maybe they would have gotten influence to ask for trades. Like, I'm not insinuating that 100%. I'm just bringing up the idea that says, hey, if Caufield and Hutson were a part of this squad, is there a possibility that maybe the tampering that was going on maybe creeped into the subconscious of either of these two players? I'm not saying it would have for sure, but I'm saying that there is a reasonable idea for Canadiens fans to be like, yeah, well, it's kind of okay that Hutson and Caufield didn't make that Olympic team. And in fact, I don't think the Americans care either. They won. Like, I don't think anybody is looking at this roster and saying, oh yeah, like, the perfect roster was assembled at Milano Cortina. No, we all acknowledge that Jason Robertson, Lane Hutson, Cole Caufield, these guys all would have provided ample value, but they don't care. They won. Like, if they lost in the gold medal game, then I think there's a lot more reason to say, oh, well, you should have gotten Robertson. You should have gotten all these guys that could have been able to help you score goals. But no, they won. It's fine. But for Hutson and Caufield, the fact that they are still committed to Montreal is a great sign. And when you read some of the responses to Marco D'Amico's tweet, I think it becomes a lot more easy to survive just this thought process that all American dudes want to leave Canada. I mean, look at Kyle Connor in Winnipeg. He's still sticking around. Winning cures everything. It always has in sports, Scase says. Now, with that said, Hughes and Larkin leaving is not the same as Brady leaving. They left two disaster teams. Brady left a team that was arguably on the come-up and just needed some solid goaltending to be a serious threat. He's an idiot. LOL. Another reply says Ottawa looked like a team that went all in too early and peaked as a middling playoff team. They were severely lacking in prospects and their core didn't really compare to others. If anything, the Tkachuk thing could have been a blessing as it forced them to pivot and take a different approach. Another reply says, unlike those who jumped ship and went south, Caufield and Hutson stayed and found success. Also, they were not on the Olympic team. Hutson kind of joined when things started to look better, or things started to look better because he joined, but Cole Caufield has definitely earned the respect of having seen the very bad years in Montreal. I mean, you also have to remember, Cole Caufield's very first set of games in a Montreal Canadiens sweater, those were the playoff games when they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, so I'd say that Caufield started on a pretty high note, what with the culture in the room and with the standard that was set, the enjoyment and the thriving Montreal energy that displayed itself at the Bell Center, even with the limited capacity seating. You got Shea Weber and Carey Price and all these really great names suiting up. It's kind of a fun place to be if you're a young dude stepping into an NHL franchise. Plus, you made a pretty solid appearance in the Stanley Cup Finals. Caufield, he's still here, even though he was a part of that NTDP squad that was so dominant and that featured some pretty interesting American players. Hutson signed on for the long term as well. It does not seem like, at this point, Hutson or Caufield would be demanding out. The exodus of American players seems to be not touching Montreal, at least for now. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How does this entire conversation make you feel about the future of Hutson and Caufield? What are your thoughts on the Brady Tkachuk trade, the potential Connor Hellebuck trade, the potential Austin Matthews and Dylan Larkin trades, and then the Quinn Hughes trade? It's all these American dudes. Except for these two, it seems. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.